Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Morning Coffee Review. Jason Artley here, joined with my buddy Michael Chabe to talk about all fun things in Bluebeam Review. Today is April 23rd, another bright and sunny Minnesota Tuesday morning, and we're here just to have a good old conversation about review troubleshooting. So we got a few other things to talk about before we get into the nitty gritty and start breaking things. But first, as always, how's it going today, Michael?
It's going good. I'm excited to talk a little bit about troubleshooting in some of those instances, but I'm also excited for a lot of new folks that have joined and kind of giving more depth of what MCR is built upon. We've been running this for over 3 years now, which is surprising that we're still coming up with topics. I think Jason and I always, when we're like, well, what now are we going to talk about? So always feel free to use the chat or email us some topics that you would like to hear from. But again, I think going back to our grassroots, at any point, if you have any workflow related questions, feel free to ask us, right? That's what this was built upon, building a community, asking other folks that have always joined the MCR, but as well asking questions that are burning in your heart from a specific workflow or just what's going on with Bluebeam or even outside of the Bluebeam ecosystem, because we do use other solutions and are more than happy to talk about those solutions. That's what this was truly built upon, building that community. So with that, also a little of introduction, I guess, right? Because
Mhm.
for those newer folks, I'll talk first, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's introduce myself. My name is Michael Chave. I am the structural services manager here, and I didn't start out in that role here. And I think all through MCR was my evolution of my role, I believe, is
Mhm.
3 years maybe.
Yeah.
And then a year and a half, I would say, is probably. So I've been here for about almost 5 years. I started out as a technical specialist. I came from industry, started doing architectural design, then mechanical fabrication for custom windows and doors, and then structural design before coming over here. I arrived here and became a technical specialist. Little after a year and a half, was promoted into a senior role, and then we decided to do some strategic planning around introduction into a structural team and dedicated structural team. So I moved into the structural services manager role here at ATG. That's a little bit about myself. And I'm, I mean, there's other stuff, but I don't want to get too deep into the woods because we do want to talk about our topic. And I know I
Mhm.
really want to learn more about Jason's evolution here because it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, so I'm gonna tie the room back together here in a minute of how we've got this thing started. But you know, I started here. Let's see, this I'm at 5.5 years, I believe, next week. Um, and I started as a civil technical specialist and did that, then did civil pre-sales, and then now I'm a learning and development partner. So I have another partner who works focusing on the salespeople. I focus on the technical people, and we are in charge of onboarding the folks who join ATG, as well as like help everybody else grow. So if Michael needs to voice a frustration or says, "Hey, I want to get better at this," he can come to me or our team and do some stuff. But so we go around the organization and help people come into ATG. And what was funny because last week when I was in Little Rock is usually when we're onboarding and we're bringing in some new folks and we start talking about MCR and like, hey, sorry, I'm going to be late to our meeting because I got to go do MCR in the other room. And I'm like, well, what is that? What is MCR? Well, it's kind of like a podcast, but it's not a podcast. And this is what we do. And we've been doing it for over 3 years now, and that's the stat that usually floors them and me too, as Michael said too. And then someone asked me the question, well, how did this get started? I'm like, well, it's complicated, right? When we were technical specialists at the same time, we had to do webinars all the time, and ATG still does webinars all the time, and I still attend webinars. You guys probably all attend webinars too, but we've decided that it's kind of frustrating sometimes when you're covering a topic and then all the questions roll in at the end, right? It's like, well, I could have answered that like 10 minutes ago, right? So we started talking about, doing this and having it be more interactive. So if somebody has a question, we can just cover it then. And, since both of us are pretty good at most of the time, big fat asterisk there. Most of the time of staying on track, we can bounce away, answer a question, then come back to our topic. So 3 years later, here we are. Some of you have been around for the whole ride, and we appreciate you. And for everybody whose names I don't recognize, welcome. Thanks for coming. This is pretty fun for us. So that said, let's get right back on topic. So as normal,
It's a
we normally
podcast.
try to have some sort of housekeeping, things that are going on in the Bluebeam or Autodesk. If there's any sort of news that you guys need to know, try to get it to you there first. I will say that there's something that I checked. I'm trying to watch the rules. Let me check the list, make sure no Bluebeam people are here today. There's something I can't talk about until tomorrow. I can't talk about something happening tomorrow, but you'll get an email probably in the morning that will explain what's going on. Otherwise, that's it. I know there's still one or two more features that are supposed to come out in April per Bluebeam's webinar. So that 3D buildings in cloud and sessions in the cloud, those are the things that are still missing from the update list, which I think are due. Only got a week now. There's only a week left of April. So hopefully next week, next Tuesday, we'll be able to talk about them. If not, we'll see what happens. Yeah, otherwise, we'll keep going. So as Michael mentioned, sometimes we struggle coming up with topics, right? Whether we're doing labels or toolboxes or whatever. I know we've covered things a few different times, and every time we do it, it's different. Same thing with today. We've covered this topic in a while. We normally have one of our amazing technical support team members join us for this one, but they're getting some well-deserved vacation time. But and everybody else is still West Coast and they're sleeping. So for those of you on the West Coast who got up early to listen to us knuckleheads, thank you. So with that said, let's break some stuff and fix it, right? We're going to talk about troubleshooting review. So if you joined us last week, I had some troubles. There's some things that came up in the chat of other people having some troubles. So we're going to talk about lots of things today about being the tech support person for Bluebeam Revu. And what do you do when it doesn't work right? Because some things happen, right? Is it Windows problem? Is it a computer problem? Is it a review problem? So we'll go from there. So Michael, where should we start today?
Let's start with them because now that I go into the office, actually, it's kind of the irony of this, just bringing up a bunch of memories because one of our technical support specialists is actually out of the Phoenix office and comes and asks me questions about Bluebeam from clients too. So let's start with one that I got the other day, where AutoCAD, they were doing a plot to a PDF and it wasn't working after it was plotted and the PDF wasn't opening. So in that case, typically when you go through and try to troubleshoot something, you ask more questions. So let's try to isolate the issue. So in that scenario, I went through and asked, okay, so if the print writer's not working or driver from review, are other ones working, right? So go through and try and use someone else's. Uninstall review. So my typical one is, okay, let's find the source of the issue. Is it review or is it just the solution that it's coming from, right? So try other print drivers. Is that same instance still happening with other print drivers, right? Because typically when a support question comes in, the first thing to do is probably you're in a frantic rush or something in that scenario, and you're like, it's Bluebeam, it's Bluebeam, which sometimes it is, right? So that case, I asked, use another print driver, still had the same issue. So that's when it comes back to an AutoCAD, so Autodesk related issue. That may be something that you want to look at. So trying different print drivers to see and isolate where that original issue is coming from and feeding from. So that one was an Autodesk related issue for that one versus a print driver from Bluebeam because multiple print drivers weren't working after they tried clicking a PDF open. So that was one.
And that's a good one too, right? So that's one that we often forget about. Well, Bluebeam printer is not working. Well, do the other printers work? Right? That's one that I don't always think about when troubleshooting. So good tip.
Yeah. Always trying to isolate the issues so that you can figure out where the main issue is coming from and which solution, so you can troubleshoot from that specific solution. And then that one just went to Autodesk support. I don't know what resulted of it. The other one would be, I guess, slow PDF, and that's pretty typical for most questions of like, hey, a PDF is rendering slow, and that can be compounding of two different issues, right? So I don't have a larger set, but when I used to, I have a famous one where I went to the city of Tucson to go and train their municipality on how to use Bluebeam as their new markup for plan submittal review. And you're not in control of the PDFs that you're receiving. So typically what I like to do is if a PDF is rendering slow, you know, you go to your thumbnails and all of these are taking forever. I don't remember if it's spinning or which one it is. In terms of these are spinning, or I forget what their rendering looks like. But if they're taking a long time to give you a preview, that's typically meaning every time you go to the next page, it's taking a while also to render here. What are some troubleshooting tips that you can go through and do? And this comes straight from Bluebeam. Typically, you want to go through and go to document properties and see where the PDF writer is first, right? This is an old PDF writer because I never rewrite it and I use it as an example all the time. But maybe it needs to be rewritten as a new writer, right? And that writer is coding the PDF and encrypting it, right? Well, I guess not really encrypting it, it's just recoding and reformatting. That's the word I was looking for. Formatting the PDF. And think about it from an overarching, I guess, instance here is that Bluebeam follows the ISO standard, and most folks always ask this when they've never been in Bluebeam, International Standard Organization of Coding PDFs, which originated, ironically enough, from Adobe. Adobe gave that kind of like standard of how you should code PDFs, and that's what majority of PDF solutions follow, right? However, typically it is better to have it formatted from Bluebeam's print driver if you're using it in Bluebeam, because of how they code their viewports and vector enriched data. It's more suitable for how reviews work because it's reviews always grabbing the metadata of that PDF and allowing you to snap to things, right? So you got to think reviews working on a bunch of different perspectives versus another solution where you can't really snap to every single thing in the content that you're going through and modifying. So it's always best, and this comes directly from Bluebeam as well, if you have a larger PDF file size to check first the driver, I would say, before you go through the dreaded repair PDF or reduce file size. Reduce file size does reduce the file quality as well. And I don't see it as much from a vector-based PDF, but I do see it majority of the times from a raster-based PDF. And for those of us that don't know, between vector and raster, raster is true and rich data where you can go through and you can scroll in and you're not having a pixelized PDF. But typically when you see a pixelized PDF where you're scrolling in and you're not actually seeing the data, that's usually an image. And sometimes other writers, even though they're printed as vector, write viewports as GIFs and GIFs. So it becomes a larger file size, and it's harder for a review to manage those larger file sizes, as you can tell when you're opening it and it's rendering slow. That's one way. The other way would be to repair as well. So you can go through and repair the PDF. And I guess, how do I rewrite a PDF? You just go File, Create from File, and you just select the file and it resaves it as a new written PDF from Bluebeam. The other one is going through and using the repair PDF. So you can go through and repair the PDF. That's another way. The other way, if it's such a large file, there's over 300 PDFs, you can create sets. And we have a video on creating sets. That way it's opening up a single PDF or an isolated amount of PDFs, depending on which set you open. So you're not looking and reviews not rendering a full, complete 300-page vector-enriched PDF.
That's a
So
topic
that's
we
another
haven't
tip.
talked recently is sets, and maybe it's time to revisit that one again. But I see Doug put in the chat that he prefers to work in individual pages, right? You will get smaller file sizes that way. For anybody else that's listening in, what do you think? Do you guys use individual, or do you have just one giant PDF, or are you using sets?
Yeah, so there's a way to extract. So if you have a 300-page PDF, you can extract individual pages. So within Review, you can always right click and extract pages, and you can extract pages as separate files. I don't know if I've ever done it from the stapler.
I don't use the stapler, honestly. I don't. I mean, stapler's handy if you're starting in Windows Explorer and you're trying to combine things. Otherwise, I find it easiest just to come into Review and do the combining here in Review.
Do I, um, yeah, I don't think you can. And someone correct me if you can. Run it as separate files out. What's the wizard? That's where it's going. Options. So I think these are just your options. So you can't, from what I'm looking at, separate PDFs out. The stapler. I think the stapler is just so hidden now with the
Mm.
new Windows. Like if you go, you have to go to show more. You can combine files from there. I know that, but there's still no separate files from here. So you would have to essentially open it in Review, and then you could do the extract pages, and you could say all pages, extract pages as separate ones.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, like even when you use a stapler, the result is gonna end up with opening Review anyway. So just open up Review and handle it all at once. Okay, good question here from Aaron. He had a recent issue when plotting a hard copy, so printing out to paper from Bluebeam PDF, some random text was omitted. When plotting the same PDF from another PDF viewer, the text plotted. It was a title sheet. Some of the text omitted was in the same text blocks as the text that plotted. It's happened on other title sheets since. In that case, the first thing that comes to mind is that PDF is not flattened in Bluebeam, or you have layers that are not set to plot, right? Somebody put some text on a layer inside of Review that's not set to plot. It looks okay on the screen. It won't plot in Review, but it would plot in a different PDF viewer that doesn't respect layers, right?
yeah, or the type of font maybe would
Yeah,
be the secondary one, that it's able to get some of that font, but it doesn't understand the rest. What's another one?
I'm busy making jokes in the chat right now.
Okay.
So,
No, I just thought there's maybe another one from the chat. So that would be my question for there, just to see what those issues and items are when you're going through and looking at that as well. Another couple of troubleshootings. I guess this comes up a lot, and I think it's more of like just a support item when reviews being installed. Maybe you don't manage your installs. Maybe someone manages your installs for you. I would just be hyper aware. We're moving to Review 21. It does cache your profiles, but I always like to have a backup. So exporting profiles, just going to Review profiles. If you've customized your user interface, your tool sets before your team deploys, I would highly just recommend saving that profile out. So that way you can reactivate it when Review 21. Again, it does have the cached local files of Review 20. Even if you uninstall Review 20, I never had Review 20 in here, so I can't go and look. But you have app roaming data that it still caches those even when you uninstall it. So you still have that data directly on your local drive. And hopefully it still pushes that information over. The other thing I guess I would add to that is be aware if you're moving from troubleshooting. If you go to a different desktop location, your profile doesn't go with you, which is what I've experienced here, right? I got a new computer. I signed back into my Review 21 license. There is no cloud caching of your profiles to move to different desktops.
right. But as Michael said, there is that cache that stays in the app data. So if you did have an older version, it will stay there, and that comes up a lot when people are hesitant to update. Well, I don't want to update. I've got so much customization. Like a lot of that stuff's going to stick around, but not everything.
Yeah, and some people don't update because it just takes too long.
These updates for review are over a gig, right? So I know we're all used to high-speed internet, but not always do we have it. So, if I'm connected to my work VPN, that 1.5 or 1.6 gigabyte update plus the install is a good 15, 20 minutes of my time. You know, Granted, I probably need a coffee or go walk the dog or something, but at the same time, if you're trying to get something done and that update keeps bugging you, or there's a function in there, yes, you can work while it downloads, but that doesn't always work
What
out
about the
well.
restart? I feel like every solution has a restart. Don't like it.
Yep. So, so we did talk about computer restarts. I mean, that's a given. But what about resetting review? So I think someone mentioned it earlier. Um,
I'm not
going
going to
up.
do it, but I'll show you.
Yeah, yeah. Show where it's at.
I believe if I remember correctly, it's in here. Not advanced settings. Maybe it's just part
It's in.
of
Right.
preferences.
Oh, and you updated, so you can search for it.
Oh yeah, reset.
There you
So
go.
they moved this around. This used to everything in here used to be in the admin. Um, but now it's part of also preferences. So you can back up, you can restore. I'm not going to test any of these because I don't want to be in the boat where I was when I reinstalled Review 21, had to get everything back in for my demos. But
I think it
res
prompts you. I'll take the risk.
okay.
Maybe. Go ahead.
Are you gonna take the risk? Or you want me to do it? Okay, I'll
No,
take the risk. I already
I'm
did.
firing it
Okay,
up.
so it does.
Okay.
It says to restore setting, review will now close. Click OK to continue. That's all it's saying.
Yeah, just cancel. So it does give you a warning. That's what I was wanting to test.
I know, but if it says restore, I would hope it would go to like a file location. Is that what it's doing? I don't know. And then you have reset. So this is where you can go and reset back to the original install of review in settings wise. So if you have some settings that you don't want to get rid of, I'd probably export them out from preferences in your profile too. But this is the reset. And then this is good too. So whenever you have a support related item that is an issue, it's always good if it happens. Once it happens, export your log folder. If you're partnered with us here at ATG for your Bluebeam, email that with it to the support. If we can't solve it, Bluebeam always asks for your file log so that they can see what happened from something not working. So this is always good to do. You can export your log file to somewhere as well. Well, this is Explore. Where's the export?
Down at the bottom. So if you do a backup here, it's going to back up things as they were, and you hit restore, and it's going to load that file, right? That it made the backup. If you use the import export at the bottom, it's going to export to an external file that will then you could load to a different computer.
Yeah.
So that backup just says, hey, review's going to close. Or sorry, if I hit backup, it does it save to an external zip file, whereas the export button loads to a XML.
Yeah, and here's a log too. But this is plugins, plugin administrator log. But here's my
Weird.
other log files too.
Dang.
Yeah. And that's only since I've had it there. So if I go to preferences, yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
Any other questions?
There was a question. So we're gonna scrolling back up in the chat. Caitlin's got a question about sessions, and I know we've talked about this a few times, and I always get confused because we talk about it so much that I don't remember which the right one is. So topic that we've covered before: if a person starts a session with a PDF and they don't have our company profile set, all the statuses then aren't available for the rest of the session. We've had issues in the past with markup statusi, and they aren't there. No way then to get them into that document then, right? So
It's
If we want,
whoever uploads the PDF,
yep, whoever
not starting
uploads
the
the
session.
PDF,
Yeah,
not, yeah. So
starting the session. Yeah.
exactly. So the statuses and everything are loaded with the PDF, not the person who did it. So it doesn't have to do with the profile. It has to do with the PDF.
Yeah, but so whoever uploads it has to have the whatever your company standard profiles are for that, and when you upload it into the session, it maintains whatever the profile settings were at that time. So if you, Jason, start something that doesn't have custom statuses in a session, don't upload the PDF, start the session, add me, I can upload the PDF because it will format to what my settings are into that session.
There we go. Clear as mud. I know we covered that a few months ago, and
Yeah,
we
Liz
we tried
corrected
different
me.
things. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was wrong. And I'm typically am because by the time we come back around to it, remember the old way of doing something before Liz informed me the easier way of importing statuses. The only issues though is if the person uploaded the PDF to the session and then they didn't have the statuses, like, to be honest, you're kind of out of luck.
Yeah.
Because if you download that PDF and then you try to upload the PDF, no one owns those markups anymore. That's the downside. Like, you can't manipulate markups from an already marked up PDF, and those markups from that upload, no one owns. So that's the downside, right? Any new markup, yeah, but like if I upload something with markups on it, no one can manipulate those markups that were originally on the PDF. Because again, what's sessions for?
Collaborating.
Of the current state of the current set when you hit upload.
Correct. So that's a whole other thing there, Caitlin. People don't follow procedures, and they don't set up their profiles correctly. Yeah, and that's where you can sort of blame IT, because there is a way to force install that profile with review. But if you're having the users do it themselves, you lose that sort of you lose that issue.
And if they change profiles, like, you're kind of out of luck. That's
Right.
why I mean, I guess how you fix that is, unfortunately, but if someone's on PTO, I guess you have a redundancy of there's 3 people that start sessions, and those 3 people are the only ones that can start sessions. Or upload PDFs to a session, not starting sessions. Sorry.
Right. The which part, Caitlin? The deployment with forcing the profile, or the okay?
I have
Man,
a
if
note of like deploying that. So with the new
I don't know,
one,
last time we covered deployments. I
I
think
don't
that's
know.
probably been a year or two, so we'll add that to the list. Maybe we'll cover that next week if our current topic is not available. If you know
I
what I'm
think here
saying.
it is. Yeah, like here's a deployment script. We don't deploy things here. Um, from an IT perspective. So like if you know this, like I'll put this in the chat all day, but I helped write this for someone, and they understood what I was writing. I didn't even understand what I was writing at the time. But this is where things would live essentially, um, on an install list, and you just add this to the subscript when you're doing a deployment. And this isn't the exact one. Yours is going to obviously be configured differently, and you just go to deployment. Like, I'll just go there. Um, and all I did was copy some of the syntaxes that they have in here. Scroll down. It tells you everything you need to know. And if trust me, like every IT person I've talked to comes into here and they're like, "Oh, it's pretty well written." Yeah, just if you read through this, it tells you everything that you need to know.
If you read through it, that's the hard part. It's like, well, I didn't see it on the page. Find on page, boom, jump to it. There's so much information that it's almost overload, and you just like, oh, this probably doesn't contain what I want. There's so much in here that will help you just ninjafy, making that a word, your deployment. So
Yeah, like here's an example list of like here's your profile example list here. This is exactly what you need because it's going to import what profiles it importing. And I guess I'll just interpret this for you. So this is the BPX import. So when this is deployed, that executable file will run. After it's done deploying, it's going to search via this. And where is where that profile lives. That's why I said you can't copy my exact one, because yours is going to live somewhere different, right? So where's that profile going to live on your network that it's going to go and grab that profile when it's being uploaded, right? So this one will be that. And I think there's one where you can set it. Yeah, look, it says right here, active. So this will be the main active profile that will, when you open review, it's set to active, meaning that is the one that it boots up with. And people can change that all day. And that just comes down to users knowing, maybe teaching your end users more about something versus not telling them something. Because then if they accidentally do something, then you may have those instances. I'm full I'm in the full bucket of teach everyone everything, so that if something does happen, they can go and troubleshoot themselves. If not, then go to the proper channels. But again, this means that, okay, so now that I've imported it after deploying it, this is going to be the active main profile for that one.
And then once that profile is active, go ahead and make sure that the toolbox is this updated one. So that's making sure it's doing it all at one fell swoop and making sure the right tool set's getting loaded on the right profile.
Yeah, and here's the syntaxes for everything. So this is, well, not everything, but what we're talking about, like here's your profiles, and it makes it active. Remove the active portion if you don't want it to make it active. Here's the import tool sets. So this will import your tool sets if you didn't have dependencies included with your profile. And then here's your hatch patterns as well. And then here's your lines. So you can export all of these by themselves.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, and David, I know, is well versed in all this stuff, so I'm glad he's chiming in, because I'm lost already.
Yeah, he's throwing in a bunch of acronyms in there. Tell your IT department to use PDQ to deploy it, or if you have MSP, they have RMM that can do it. LOL. Bonus acronym. Thanks, there, David. Um, but I suppose we could talk about this while we're in here too. You just mentioned something, Michael, that we should probably talk about again. I know it's been a hot minute since we did that. Since we're troubleshooting review, sometimes people are using different profiles accordingly. And if you want to export a profile, there's an option there to include dependencies. Let's dive in a little bit more and talk about what that means to include that dependency. Why you might want to or not do that.
And so we're aware, from my understanding of dependencies, and I would love to get clarification on this, but from my understanding, your dependencies are just your tool sets, your markups lists, your custom statuses. It is not your hatch patterns and your line styles. That's why they're separate, my understanding. I may be wrong, but that's what I understand as dependencies. So when you go and like export dependencies, wherever you're having something saved to a profile, which would be tool sets, which would be your markups lists with custom statuses, because you hit that save to profile, right? Or the organization of how this looks. And then what was the other one? Tool sets that. And then, like, I guess any other preferences that you've set up from profile UI. So you can go and you can manage profiles and export it. When you include dependencies, it comes with your statuses and your tool sets. When you do not have this, it comes with the UI of the profile only.
And I don't remember if that was checked or unchecked by default. So that's where it's one of those things. There's a couple of little sneaky checkboxes in review that will get you, and they're not always consistently checked or unchecked accordingly.
Yeah.
So I always recommend just include the dependencies.
And then if you have preferences, that's a separate export too. So you have a preference export log here that you can export your preferences out. So anything that's been set up in here, you can export out as well. And then your line, you just go to your line, you make a line and you can export those out.
Mhm.
I guess I'll go through and do it. So you just come into here. We did that yesterday, last week, right? We did this, yeah. Manage, and then you can export.
It's that BLX file.
Same thing with hatch patterns too. So being aware of exporting those out and like the embedded data for those.
Right.
Stamps as well. So we talked about custom stamps. If you want to learn about editing JavaScript from pre-existing stamps, there's a YouTube video out there on that. But if you want to make a custom from scratch Java stamp, reach out to us. There's a lot of work involved with that. But yeah, so coming into here, there is the ability to import a stamp. So this would be like you have a stamp that's not pointing to the folder. So your folder auto imports those. I don't know why. I guess it's just selecting the folder. So I would, can I just open this up in a whatever? So whenever this is what it's pointing to, and it shows those stamps reflected in here, right? So it shows them reflected in here. So you have the option to go through and grab them. Now, the other one would be to import it. So it's not in the folder location, but I want it here in my list. That's when you import things. Does that make sense?
It sure does. I wanted to, okay. So since we're on that topic, internally we had a conversation yesterday. A client has a folder on the network that they map tool sets to, and they wondered if you could have more than one, because people are making stamps and that ends up in that folder, and then that stamps becoming a mess. So when we're talking about deployments and rolling out profiles and read-only type of things, now would probably be a good time to mention that. If you don't have good housekeeping and you have everything in one folder, things are going to appear for people that probably don't want to see that, right?
Mm.
There is that capability to go to tools, stamps, and set that stamp folder. And if that's your company Bluebeam junk drawer, when you go to that stamp tool, it's just going to
Sure.
throw in so much crap, right?
Yeah.
So should we talk strategies around the best way to organize your Bluebeam
Best
tools? Because
practices.
we're talking BLX, BPX, BHX. We've got all these files. Do we throw them in one folder and call it read only for the IT folks, or do we put them in individual folders?
I don't know. This has been a topic of conversation, and I don't like getting too much into the weeds about this because it all comes down to like how your company's set up. But I personally wouldn't. I don't know. I guess if I were running a company that was required to have the similar tool sets, but I know humans,
Mhm.
they're just gonna like change things. So I probably would just deploy it with everything and then send updates to local copies of those like monthly or something. I don't know. Versus pointing to a local location, because you always run the worry of someone modifying something from an original location that everyone's having. That's my personal opinion, but I don't know. Other people may have a different one. So if you do have an organization that is pointing to like a local toolset file location or folder location of stamps, my recommendation would probably be to, because you can't lock it natively from review. My recommendation would be to lock it from a Windows level so that people can't overwrite or save files to that one, and then it's the original file always being uploaded or maintained from that perspective. And then you'd have to have an admin right to you know re up it.
Bingo. So yeah, definitely have that read only set in there, because as Caitlin mentioned in the chat, sometimes people are putting their seals in there. And I've seen Bluebeam stamps, seals that include the signature on there too. It's not a real review signature. It's just a graphic. So somebody's personal stamp gets mixed up with everybody else's stuff. I mean, that can get misused. It can get abused. It can be, it can become an issue if we, do the doomsday version of that, the doom and gloom. Like, potentially that could be a bigger issue than just, hey, I was too lazy to click on this folder.
Yeah.
So getting caught up on the chat. Yeah, it is kind of CAD management-y, but you wouldn't think you need PDF management either. It's almost a full-time job on its own.
Review can
Um,
do a lot. So that, I mean, we've demonstrated that over time. It's not as robust software from like a design side, I guess you would say. I don't want to
mhm.
be like, I mean, let's call it what it is, right? It's not a 3D modeling software. I mean, you can open up a 3D PDF. So, but there's a lot of complexities to it, right? Because that's what we need it to do in the industry. If you're using it like the A word, then by all means, it's probably not complex, but you're not getting the full benefit of your subscription that you're paying for, right? I mean, that comes down to any subscription. I talked to you about this, Jason. I'm using Adobe Premiere Pro. And we talked about this before, which is they have great design suites from like video editing and like picture content editing, right? Um, if you're not using that software to the fullest extent, or this software to the fullest extent, or like Revit to the fullest extent, you're not getting the full value out of it. And I always recommend, that's why I recommend Bluebeam training. And Bluebeam gives you free training as well, but Jason and I can never log into it. Bluebeam
Oh,
University. Let's
so
let's give it a go.
about this. Oh, select login method. You might be getting farther. Sign in, select region, and then it's going to take you to the access code one, right? Oh,
We'll see.
oh. I got on with the troubleshooter. I sent an email to Bluebeam support. They said, "Oh, you should be able to do this," and I said, "Nope. This is what happens. The same thing that you're seeing right now is what happens." I sent them a screenshot, and I haven't heard back. It's been a week, so thanks, Bluebeam. Love you.
That's good support.
Yeah. I would love to get into Bluebeam University because I know they have instructor-led courses, and it would be really handy sometimes. But this is not
Yeah.
working for me.
You know what? It's also good is we'll go to YouTube.
Oh boy, are you plugging right now?
No, what do you mean? I'm going here. Yeah. This is also good. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you ever needed training, there's a ton of Bluebeam content that we have. I think this is our video right now
Yeah.
being edited. But
But
there's sorry.
About this, right? This is just us talking. This isn't the official Bluebeam training. We are both Bluebeam certified instructors. We are not providing Bluebeam certified instruction. There's a different thing in this. So the Bluebeam University might be a little bit more official. We're just two dudes talking about Bluebeam every morning, every Tuesday morning for over 3 years. So it is what it is.
But yeah,
Oh, look at that.
yeah, so this is a plug for MCR. I guess Jason called me out on it. So yeah, plug for MCR. If you do want training, this is an instructor-led training in terms of it being certified by Bluebeam, but we've been doing this for over 3 years. There's 163 videos. If you want to learn more things about Bluebeam, there's stuff here. There's also Global Lead training if you're partnered with us. But be aware, this comes with your subscription. So if you don't get this access code, you're paying for this. And we're talking about getting the most value out of what your subscription is paying for. Here's one of them. They've included this. It used to be $250 a year, which is actually the base subscription, just so we're all know of Review Basic. Yeah, that is what you get access to. Use it, right? If you are new to this place, they say expert option. See, I want to go in here and see like what is this, and
Yeah.
David sent one.
Well, because so David put in the chat a screenshot, and there is a 35-minute introductory course, and there's a hour and 30-minute review essentials course. When we train it, it's 6 hours for review essentials. There looks like there's something in there for Bluebeam Cloud and quantity takeoff, so maybe those are the intermediate or expert ones. But I've seen, yeah, there it says right there, live and self-guided web courses. So I know there's something in there. The same fidget spinner. Yeah. I've got a couple. But yeah.
You know what's funny? Like, I bet you I would love a fidget spinner treat because like I'm always holding something while I'm talking.
So squirrel, side note, I've been talking about this with some of our people here internally. Like, it's getting really hard to stay focused sometimes, especially when you're on a call or you're waiting for your time to turn, and people go to their phone or they go to email or they go to something else where they're not fully present. Where with a fidget spinner or a little clicky box or something else, you have something in your
I'm holding the
hands
bottle cap.
that you can focus on, and it still helps my mind stay focused on the topic, but my hands are busy doing something that has zero sort of, you know, thing. I don't know what the word is, but yeah, this fidget spinner so it's a mix of the popper thing and the spinner. Yeah, that's good stuff.
So this is what David posted. So there's some stuff in here.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Doug said, he said it's basic. So if you're an advanced learner um, or user, I guess, of Review, you may want some more MCR guided ones where we have like people like Doug and David on, and way more advanced than what Jason and I do to demonstrate some of the capabilities.
But this would be good, like, if everybody has a subscription to this, anybody who has a stamp should probably go to document security and verification, right? Like, hey, go take this 1-hour course. You're going to learn the best practices for how to do your stamps stamps and seals inside of Review, and that will be beneficial, right? They don't need to take everything, right? So that's where it's
I'd
also
agree.
beneficial, where it's not just word of mouth, like, hey, go learn from Bluebeam on the way that they say to do it, um, and go from there.
Yeah. What are some other support related things that you've come across? Because I know you help out a lot too. Because here at ATG, we have a 7-minute support response time,
Mhm.
2 hours guaranteed. With that, if they can't answer the question, they reach out to folks like myself or Jason. What are some of the other ones?
Um, we talked about it a little bit last week, and we'll cover that again. I know that's where you started. Large file sizes, right? Sometimes those file sizes are not review problems. They are related to the software that it was generated from, or maybe it is a review problem, right? So go to your document properties and go from there. So the step that you showed last week, but you didn't show this week, is when you're in document properties and it says Adobe PDF or it says Nitro or has some other PDF producer besides Bluebeam, what do you do?
Yeah. So what you want to do is you want to go to that file and let's just rewrite this old one as a Bluebeam written file, right? So you go to create from file. We'll go to um, hmm, that's my OneDrive docs, Bluebeam and completed sets. So I'll grab this one and I'll open it and it's going to rewrite it. So you could overwrite it and um, hmm, I guess I could do that. Perfect. Jason hates when I do this. You ever wonder why I have so many things on my desktop? That's why. So you can go and do an overwrite of the same PDF, but I'm not. It's gonna save it as a new area. Application standard document, or you could do review document. I've never used these. SolidWorks document. That's weird.
No, I don't think I've ever paid attention to it.
Yeah.
Look
Oh,
at
you can
that.
change a DPI here. And this is like reducing PDF file size, by the way, to your DPI. I've seen one that had 600 DPI coming out of, and you can set your DPI in your software, but that's a resolution, which it's not vector raster based, but if you had a raster based and there's some images in there, the DPI is definitely a cause for issue. Okay, so we'll hit save. It's going to run the postscript. And then from here, now I can go to my document properties and I'll see the new one, Bluebeam Brewery 5.0.
What we should have done was taken note of the file size before you did that, right? I mean, this is a small file; it's less than a meg, but um, sometimes just doing that is enough to change the file size in one way or the other, right? Because there's that metadata that you were talking about that gets included with that.
Well, and this is Bluebeam written, but look at it's 92768. So I'll do file.
Yeah, so it got smaller.
With the new writer compared to the
Yep.
2017 Bluebeam writer. Yeah.
Mm, interesting. Getting caught up on the chat. We have
Yeah.
municipalities not being able to open PDFs unless we print as an image and reduce file. That's defeats the purpose. As Michael said, Revu follows an ISO standard, so it should open up with Revu with Adobe and or Nitro or Foxit or whatever. Um, heck, Chrome, Safari, PDFs get read by all sorts of software these days.
I wouldn't want
An image, no way.
an image because that is a larger file size in and of itself. But you can see the difference here just to show people, and then synchronize screen. I think it auto syncing. Nope, because I turned it off the other day because I was frustrated that it was syncing. But basically, as you go through, you can tell the difference of an image versus vector, true enriched lines, right? Raster, Bluebeam's training tells you ragged lines. So
Interesting. All right, so we talked about file size. Let's
print
go
drivers.
Print drivers. Talked a little bit about deployments. We talked about profiles. We talked about resetting through the administrator. How do we find if there are updates for Revu? You go up to help and you go check for updates.
Yeah.
So as of April 23rd, 2024, the latest version should be 21.1. How do I verify that? We're going to hit OK here and then go up to Review and go to About. And then there you go. 21.1 is the latest version as of April 23rd, 2024. And we expect something new coming up real soon. I don't think it'll be a 21.2. It'll probably be a 21.1.1. But that's usually how that works.
Yeah.
Some of the next updates are supposed to happen to Bluebeam Cloud as well. We will find out this week. That is what we have on the schedule for next week.
Yeah, hopefully that thing releases. I'm just blown away that they release it in well, I guess it makes sense. I mean, they want to be the first to talk about it, so never mind.
Yeah. So we shall see. Loaded question there, David.
Yeah, we pivoted from Espresso Yourself, just from analytics and data perspective. Not a lot of folks were listening to it on Spotify, so we wanted to give you more of what you all enjoy. So we just went off of analytics.
Yeah, the votes weren't there. We had fun with them. We still might bring them back
voted
every
off
now
the
and then.
island.
Yeah, I mean,
but we did say we would have them on here, right? It just wouldn't be an Espresso Yourself.
Yeah.
Edition.
It's still our show. We do what we want. And a lot of you are awesome to talk to, so maybe we'll start that again. But it won't be a specific thing because that required more stuff going on the back end, different platforms. It became a lot of work for a little, whatever.
If that question came about, who do you want to hear from, David? Because we had, sorry.
Have reaction or commentary. There you go.
Yeah. We had, what was his Noyes?
Peter Noyes.
Peter on, and that wasn't an Espresso Yourself. That was before we were doing Espresso Yourself. So, I mean, we can still do the same thing here where we have people talking about things. It just won't be a separate edition, and it won't be going to Spotify. It'll just be on YouTube. So,
right. Yeah, I mean, reaction or commentary, that seems like the hot thing right now is recording a video of you watching somebody else's stuff. Yeah. Yeah, we've met David Recker before, I believe. I don't know if we've had him on, but I think we pretty sure
he's out of Canada, right? If I remember correctly. He works for Bluebeam, right? Doug, if I remember correctly.
Oh, Toronto.
Yeah, we can try. There's just a long process to get somebody from Bluebeam on because their marketing team has to approve it and all that stuff. But let me tell you, we will try. We'll ask CJ to see if we can get David on. It's a lot easier to get someone that isn't tied to a large corporation because I guess they have to go through a marketing thing and be aware of stuff. But we'll try. We'll get with CJ after this and see if we can get David on.
Yeah. I did see her last week. She says she misses you all. So there's that. All right, we got a couple minutes left here. What else we want? We think we can get one more tip in, and then we'll wrap it up. Um, and I had something and I forgot it. Welcome to another Tuesday on Morning Coffee Review.
I know.
Um,
Typical.
right. So we talked about updates, where to find them. We talked about resetting. Um, one thing that has come up recently, again, is the 64-bit versus 32-bit thing, right?
Mm,
And if you're going to load this software on a Windows like a Surface Pro that has an ARM processor, those aren't officially supported anymore, and Review is not supported on virtual desktops
mm.
officially from Bluebeam. So virtual desktops are taking off. They're getting more and more popular as hardware becomes either harder to get or it takes too long or more expensive. If you rely on Review, it's not going to work on a VDI machine per Bluebeam. Now, is there a hack for it? Probably. Are people making it work? Probably. I haven't seen it, but officially it's not supported, meaning, hey, I'm having problems with Review, and you're gonna say, well, I'm on a Citrix VDI machine. They're gonna say, sorry, that's not supported. You gave them the out, right? They don't have
Yep.
to help you,
I
which
think it
sucks.
works on like an individual. But so this is the issue I know one company had where they wiped the machine and create a new desktop. That's not going to work. But if you have like an individual dedicated machine on your VDI per user, it could work. The issue is again because it's an install assigned to a license. You can't share
Hmm.
a review license that's like a perpetual license, right? So you can not do it with a user-based license or structure, but think of it as Autodesk products in terms of like how it navigates that ecosystem.
So I will wrap up with a plug. I know I gave Michael crap for plugging earlier. We're not trying to be uh, uh, salesy here, but if you are an ATG customer and you need tech support, just use your tech support. It's included. You're not paying extra for it. Our team is amazing. Less than 10-minute response time. They will get you sorted if you are having problems with Review. Or hey, if you're an Autodesk customer, they'll help you with that too. But you don't have to be frustrated with slow response times. You don't have to be frustrated with Googling things or checking out, 160 episodes of stuff that we've talked about before. If you're a customer, just go to support and they'll take care of you. Make it easy on
Exactly.
yourself.
Well, that brings us up to the time. Thank you all for joining us today on this technical support edition of Bluebeam and kind of a refresh of what this is all built around and what MCR is. But as always, I'll let Mr. Jason Artley finish this off because he always does a good job.
Well, yeah. Thanks everybody for joining in. Thanks for the interactions on the chat and asking questions and everything. It's good to see you all again. And like I said before, welcome if you haven't been here before. We'll see you next Tuesday, at April 30th at 8:30 Central. Take care,
Yep.
everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you all.
Hey there, thanks for tuning in. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check out some of the other content on our channel.